This topic of soul purpose is really one that has pervaded my whole life. I used to think that it was by trial and error, or that there was maybe just one and that you could either like hit or miss it. So, not to worry, today we'll be discussing on how to find your soul purpose and to really align your lives with it. So, first of all, let's be discussing on what exactly is your soul purpose. So, no matter what your life might look like on the outside, your soul purpose is always deeply spiritual in nature. So, it's not just related to the outer activity, but it also speaks about our inner being. And the activity that we do and what we're inclined to also emerges from the hidden values that come from our inner being. So, this inner being represents the thought and the motivation that we really have come to learn and to share. And in short, it's kind of like a reason for being on earth at this time. And it always has the aim of deepening awareness, of deepening our values and our love. So, our soul purpose is also always designed to bring us into greater wholeness within ourselves. So sometimes when we can have like this lack of clarity and it's just that our outer expression has not been found yet. And what we just really need to do is to let go of that self-invalidation, because sometimes this causes the learnings of the heart to be doubted, to be rejected. And when we do that, then we can start to trust and open ourselves up to be guided by the internal wisdom. And in doing so, start to live on the level of the soul. So it is our duty really to be deeply present to the miracle that is you. And each of us has this natural way of being that only our inner self knows. And this is so unique. And later on, this forms your distinct expression and your brand. And we'll be talking about that in the later webinars, right? So when we celebrate ourselves, then we begin to serve the purposes of our soul. And when we are faithful to our inner being, that's when we begin to start living our life of greater freedom. So, how else do we find out our soul purpose, right? So, our soul purpose is always deeply embedded in that place that brings joy within you. So, isn't that beautiful? Like, one of the things is to really follow your bliss. So when you follow your bliss, you start to activate within you the vibrational frequencies of love, of joy, and abundance. And that in itself is just so ultimately creative. And when we are creating, we are meant to do what we are doing, what we are meant to do on this planet. So one Robert one quote in the power of myth goes Sat Chit Ananda, and I really like that because it says like Sat is truth, Chit is consciousness, and Ananda is bliss. And if you really don't know what your truth is and you're not quite sure what your consciousness is, then follow your bliss. Because if you follow your bliss, then you put yourself on that kind of track that has been there all the while, just waiting for you. And the life that you ought to be living is the one that you are living. So follow your bliss and don't be afraid, because doors will begin to open where you just didn't know they were going to be. And this is a simple maxim that I just really started to follow. And I sat down, listed everything I really loved. And later on, I found like this started to intersect in really uncanny ways. So when you do things from your soul, you start to connect to this river running through you. It's a river of joy, and it's a happiness. And when you're in that state all the time, then you start to cultivate within you a flow state. That's when you're just so deeply immersed in the present moment. And this becomes a sort of like moving meditation. And this is actually really studied by scientists as it's the state of elite performance. They notice this in peak athletes and such. So follow your bliss and do things from your soul and let that state start to flow. So yeah. And another way to really also start to hone in on finding your soul purpose is to find your why. So your why is your mission. It's that undercurrent energy that really moves things forward. It's that driver. So your why is the deeper meaning behind all your business and all your personal activities. And this actually starts to come from your intention. And that is just so ultimately powerful. because that is kind of like your will saying, thy will be done. So every action, every thought and feeling is motivated by an intention. Also, that intention exists, is a cause that exists as one with the effect. So this just really, so then it just really matters where you're coming from. So an intention of love, an intention of service can produce a vastly different effect than an intention that, may come from making money for the sake of it, or having to prove myself, or coming from a different agenda. So even in that sense, even if the activities may look the same on the outside, the effects can be vastly different. And this does take some self-reflection, because our intentions, our motivations may not really seem so clear at first. But when we think about it looking at it from a point of energy, then intentions fueled by love really come from a high vibrational place, and they push things out into the world at light speed. So a big enough why really gives us that perspective, right? And it keeps us going no matter what, because then we are looking at things from a higher perspective and looking at things from the big picture. So this is a why that becomes greater than just ourselves or any action. And when you start to clarify your why, then the how starts to unfold. It starts to follow. And challenges which may seem, big at first when you're looking at it from a bigger perspective, then they actually have a place in the puzzle. So I actually experienced this. I've had my fair share of challenges, business failures, and it was really, really my why that kept me moving forward. And what I found that even if the activity started to shift and change, my why itself didn't change. So it's the why is what pushes it through, and it pretty much will stay solid. So when you're able also to communicate your vision and your reason why, that's a way for people to connect to you emotionally, and it really creates this sort of resonance. And this is what people start to follow, or to and to believe in as well. So yeah, that's really leading from the soul. So yeah, so definitely it's really, your why is just so important. So another way to really start to hone in onto your soul purpose is to begin to clarify your values. So your personal values are that which you deem important and are guideposts in life. So our business can be a vehicle also for our purpose. And our values determine our business decisions. It determines also our business direction. And it does take some reflection again on really clarifying what are my soul's deepest values, because it's easy to pull out values here and there, but what really resonates with me, and what would I also want to see my business doing in the world. So later on, when building a brand, this also serves as pillars to your brand, and it determines what is important to the organization. So this is more than you already. And it also determines the direction that everybody will go. So like my personal, like I had values in my business, and basically that had a lot to do with freedom and also fun. Like I noticed, like at first I was like, is fun even a value? But then I noticed like that was something that was always like in in the brand DNA. And I really did build my business around this, and it's moved and it's shaped and evolved. But then some aspects did stay the same, and especially these ones. And this would come out in the business structure and also in the messaging. So sometimes the values can also be the center of your communication strategy. So the content pillars of your communication strategy will include the values that you're also imparting to the world. So another way to also begin to hone in and really just find your soul purpose is to realize and always come from an attitude of service. Attitude of service. So this is really a heartfelt desire to serve humanity. And in this zone, we begin to hone our passion or what we love to do, our bliss, into a skill. So it's really making it more concrete. And in this one, we really just begin to survey the world around you and look, where am I most called to be of service? Where can I make the most difference in an aspect that actually also really interests me? So the spot where your greatest skill and what you love to do intersects with the world's deepest need is where you can really create impact, and that makes ripples. So this is also our added attitude of service or an intention, also is very much related to our why, just because it comes from pure intention. And this is very, very powerful as well. So um, it's a big difference between coming from a place of giving versus getting. And when we come from a place of giving, this is already operating from abundance versus for abundance. So then again, it's like, okay, where am I coming from that I do choose to uh, operate from an attitude of service and in service to humanity, to other people? And in doing so, you're coming from abundance and also generate the same in your life. So start from your why, your intention, and then see how am I along the journey, and can I cultivate the flow state by always staying in a state of bliss, following your bliss, and in doing so, make my life itself a meditation and prayer. And when this intersects with your greatest skill, what you've honed, and with what the world needs, then that's where you could create the biggest impact. So just remember that all of us are already born with all the latent talents required and have chosen the life experiences that we need to really step fully into our purpose. All of our experiences become your story. And this actually later on forms part of the brand as well. So it's up to us to look within and to really own that power. And we can own that power by connecting with ourselves and honoring our journey. So, sometimes it's just our light that can be so bright that it can be scary. And this reminds me of a quote by Mariam Williamson. And she did say, like, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, it's actually that we are powerful beyond measure. So we're more afraid of our light. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. So it's really not a question of whether we are lacking anything, because all it takes is a conscious decision on our part to begin to step forward, to hone our talent into a skill, and step into our power. And when we are the light, we can also start to come in touch with our soul purpose. And it's also the same the other way around. So when we cultivate the light within us, then we cultivate the light within us when we start to come from our purpose and our joy. So do trust in the process and honor the journey, because we are always, always where we're meant to be, and we already have everything within us. So yeah, just remember, when we're starting to hone in and find our purpose, then it's really opening ourselves up to this big adventure, something and it's a really exciting ride. It's a really exciting journey. So yes, do follow your bliss, find your joy, find your passion, hone in and find your big why, find that thing that drives you forward, clarify your values, and this is really an exciting exercise. And also always come from an attitude of service, and remember, you there to connect to the creator within you, and to always trust and let go for life to open up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noelle. That was just very inspiring, and I definitely had some moments for myself. I could see how the foundational points that you highlighted of follow your bliss, know your why, clarify your values, come from an attitude of service. I could see how those are pillars and necessary ingredients to consider when branding your soul purpose. And so I'd love the audience to get to know you some more, and to get some more insight into your journey, and tell us about where you started and how you ended up to where you are right now where you are able to step into your purpose or you're already in your purpose? And what were the challenges that you encountered along the way and how did you overcome them?
Thanks, Tony-Ann. It definitely has been one big adventure. Well, finding my purpose really first came into my focus when I found myself in a job that was making me feel sick. Like I so acutely felt called to be doing something else, although I didn't know what. So I do remember sitting down to list everything that I loved. And these were actually mostly passion, hobbies and passions, things that I didn't think I could ever earn a living from. And just an example, it included things like movies, music, yoga, media, like sunshine, beaches, or food and books. And when I look back, it is true when they say that you can connect the dots looking backwards, because later on, these separately started to form my unique take on my business and a brand. And it is actually still emerging, but I did go on a journey of honing some of these skills, like becoming a yoga teacher, like being certified as a coach, like a health coach, life coach. And when it formed my first venture, it ended up like as a music based like yoga studio and superfood cafe. Like who would have ever thought that? But yeah, so sadly enough though, I had to close that business down last year. But and after some self-reflection, like I really saw that wow, it's the challenges that has really shaped me to become the person that I am today. And um one thing that I saw was also my why has really not wavered, and it has pushed me forward despite it all. So I did start to mold my life and my business out of my new and evolved like wishes, or my new evolved lifestyle, or ideal one. So yeah, sometimes along the journey, of course, I'd feel a little bit frustrated or anxious, wanting to know the end. But so later on, it's just really all about the journey, and it actually never ends. It's just really evolving, it's growing and shifting form. And so the present is where we're really is it. So yeah, that's one of the most amazing things that has come out of it.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I feel that for you've mentioned earlier about following your bliss and following your joy, and I can understand that for some it may be challenging to maintain that state of being and vibration. And so, what are the tips that you have where you can share with us about how is it that you maintain that level of being, and do you experience the opposite of that? And if so, how do you bring yourself, deal with that, and how do you keep your state of being at that level?
Yeah, totally. I do know I think all ends of the coin. And one thing that I really noted was that there's also power in contrast. Like when you know how bad feels, then you do know, then that's already like some consciousness in the body of yourself. So then you're also able to slowly step up the vibrational scale willingly and consciously by choosing your thoughts, maybe shifting your focus to something else, because there is always something else to focus on, and to use your emotions as a guide. So always, meaning always being able to tune into yourself and into your heart and see what am I feeling at the moment, and from there on you can shift it to move. Also, one thing is to really accept yourself in that moment. So instead of feeling frustrated and angry at yourself for maybe not feeling so blissful, uh, it's really also saying, okay, this is where I'm at. Love myself for where I'm at, and this is actually one way to really start to. This is one way to shift your out of that and into the next new, next new reality for you. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so if I'm, for a lot of us, we have, we're looking for ways to get to know our soul purpose and make it concrete, make it tangible in the world. And so, what are some of the practical tips and techniques or resources that you utilize to help you tap into your soul purpose and make it so conscious where you're able to own it?
Yeah, well, definitely it is, it's a practice of being self-preferred as well. So really starting to uh, foster that connection within yourself, because a lot of the times when we tell ourselves, okay, we have a thought, we have an inclination, and then we shut it down right away saying, no, that's not possible, or that's not viable, then this actually weakens your connection to the soul, because sometimes that is the soul talking. Those inclinations, those motivations come from your deep desires, right? And that always comes from the soul as well. Like, so not to shut it down, not to come from the heart instead of the mind, and to maybe like start a practice of like a centering practice that suits you. So this may be something as simple as connecting to your breath, or it could be meditation if that's something that appeals to you, or just fostering some like an hour of conscious movement, or just taking some time so that you can for self-love. And in doing so, you pretty much foster that connection with yourself, grow the love that you have for yourself, and this is actually living your life already on purpose.
Okay, awesome. I see that it's a combination. It sounds like it's a way of being, is what you're saying. And then it's like that way of being is what you create in the world. And you can use a medium such as a business or work or something of that nature as a medium to express it. Is that what you're saying? So soul purpose is a combination of it's who you're being, what you're tapping into, and what you're vibrating at, and then expressing that in the world. Is that what I'm getting from what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, definitely come from being first, and then the action starts to spring from that state of being, and then it becomes an action of ease versus something that's very forced, or just because you think you need to do it. So yeah, definitely advocating that come from a place of being, a fullness of being, and then taking action.
Absolutely. And so why is soul purpose important? If someone isn't aligned with soul purpose, what's the cause and effect? And why is it important for someone to become aware of their soul purpose and live that in the now?
Mhm. Yeah, the more you're not in touch with yourself, like the harder and harder it gets to listen to what the soul is saying. And then, then you can start to become led by the ego. And this becomes a pursuit of the personality. And a lot of the times you'll know this because there's this disgruntled feeling, a frustration, or not really feeling fulfilled. And this always gets covered up by other things, other forms of escape, whether it's like food or like, shopping or something. And this lack of alignment also can manifest in the body energetically, like in the form of sickness or unhappiness. And yeah, definitely this is that I would say wouldn't be living from the soul purpose versus just being present and yeah, being present, living on purpose, living with love on purpose, imbue putting love in all your actions as well. Then it can drastically like shift your life in a different direction.
Awesome. uh, you know, there are so many people. I work a 9 to 5 job. I'm sure there are many people in the audience that have a 9 to 5 job, or they have some type of work that they do. And so, how do you bridge or make that connection between soul purpose and work? Because, or what advice do you have for someone that wants to do their soul purpose and may have a difficult time transitioning into that?
Mhm. Yeah, I can completely understand that question, and that's a really good question. I mean, every step that we are in the journey, wherever we are, is actually meant to be there. It's something for us to experience, to learn from, to grow from. So it's not to say like if I have work and this is work, and sole purpose is like completely something else. Um, there could be a calling, like maybe something that you really love to do and it, but you're working in a job that's completely opposite. Just look at the job as a place where you're learning maybe necessary skills and experiences in order to start to live a more full a life of purpose, right? So looking at it from an integrated point of view, and starting to say, okay, this is exactly where I'm meant to be, and I'm learning what I need to learn from here. And let me see what I can do so that I can start to put in to mix it with what I love to do. So definitely loving where you're at and then going from there. So that's also looking at it from a higher perspective and seeing, okay, this does fit in the puzzle somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how lighthearted you are about it. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet. I could feel how you take out that judgment and you're just flowing with the moment and then going to the next level and then to the next level. So I think that's cool. Um, so, this conversation about knowing your soul purpose, branding it, I know I'm just curious to know. So, what is it that you've observed in terms of, our generation in becoming conscious of their soul purpose? What is the effect if if we don't step into that? What is it that you feel? Why is it so important for us as millennials or for all the generations to participate in this conversation, in connecting to soul purpose and making that tangible in the world?
Sure. Well, we talked about earlier what happens on an individual level if you're not really stepping into that purpose. So that imagine that on a collective level, then that's when you see people like starting to take it out in the world around them, harming the world or damaging the world around them. And definitely it is important for each of us to uh, do our pretty much our duty of really stepping into our own purpose, and in doing so we become the change that we want to see in the world around us. So it really just begins with ourselves, and when we're doing this together collectively, then the changes are massive. That's like evolution on a really great scale, and I think that that would be a completely uh, such a world full of love and fulfillment, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that we're doing this and having this conversation today. I am so excited, and I'm so happy that you're here to show us share some of your experience and your expertise with us and the audience. And so I'd like to hear from the audience what their experience has been in search of their soul purpose. What are some of the problems that you're encountering? What are the pains that you're facing? And what is it that you'd like to learn about soul purpose branding that you'd like to ask Noelle today? She's here to support you. And keep in mind that for soul purpose, it may be easy for some of us may have had an easier time in our search finding that and aligning with that, and some of us may have had it harder to connect to that. And sometimes it's right under our nose and we can't see it, and we tend to look outside or look forward and not within, and then we go around in circles looking for it. And I mean, I could definitely attest to that. And so again, I'd like to know, what is it that you guys are experiencing? What are the challenges and the obstacles you're encountering in becoming aware of your soul purpose and branding that here in the physical?
Yeah, I'm all ears.
Yes, I know, we're excited. Don't be afraid to unmute, guys. You can hit the unmute button or press *6 on your cell phone if you're on the phone. But we welcome your questions if you have any. I think this is exciting, and there's so much we can learn together. Anyone going once, going twice?
Going 3 times. I'm unmuting.
Yay! Suze is in the house. Okay, Suze, go for it.
Hi everyone. Good evening. Well, I consider myself a jack of all trades. There are a lot of things that I like to do. Thank you for clarifying your steps on excuse me, follow your bliss, find your why, clarify your values, and come from an attitude of service. When you said the come from an attitude of service, it now hones into my why, my what makes me happy when I with what I want to do. And that gave me a little bit more clarity because I was looking at 4 different options and now I'm down to two because of come from an attitude of service. But then I say to myself, what would, because now two brings me happiness. It gives me the alignment. So it's like, how do I hone in even more so that instead of two now it's just one.
Mhm. If I might ask, like, what are the two that you have on the top of your list?
One of them is cooking,
Mhm.
and then the other one is coaching.
Oh,
So it gives me joy in both avenues. One, I have more experience in cooking than I do in coaching, but I can also see myself, being in the service of coaching from a standpoint of a mom who's gone through so much, where I can't bring that into cooking.
mm. I think like definitely the just coaching is your just a desire to help others along the way and to also share your experiences, helping others to move forward as well. And I can see how cooking can come from a lot of love, and it's a very nurturing aspect, very motherly also. And I mean, I think it is also possible to have a coaching, coming from like a coaching background or a desire to coach, and also have that while you're teaching how to cook. And so it's just an idea of like, being able to integrate both loves, both passions. And when I mean coming from an attitude of service, it's just an attitude of wanting to give. It doesn't mean giving it for free. It doesn't mean like, um, it just means authentically sharing from your fullness and really, really coming from that desire to make a difference in other people's lives. And I think cooking and coaching are like the perfect avenues to do that from and to do that with, right? So I think that's beautiful.
Thanks, Noel. Something just popped in after what you just said, so I'm going to explore that further.
I'm glad.
Thank you so much, Suze, for being the first one. We appreciate your question. I'm happy that we've been able to assist you there. Any other questions from the audience? We have Noelle here. She's here to assist you, answer your questions. She has so much to share with you. Feel free to jump in.
We have a question from Andrea. She
Okay.
typed it in. Her question is, what is the difference between soul purpose and passion?
Well, all of your passions actually come from your soul, Andrea. So when you have a passion and that's like a deep desire and an inclination, it does mean do follow it, do put in energy, don't just like chalk it up to, okay, well that's useless, I it's maybe just a hobby and this is my work. So I'm saying like this, your sole purpose organically starts to form when you start to follow your bliss, follow your passions, and start to maybe put some energy into it, concretizing it. And then that becomes, and then obviously coming from a place of bliss, of fullness, of abundance, that's what actually will start to concretize your passion, making it part of your purpose, making it your purpose, making it a purpose that comes from your soul. Yeah, is there if you have any follow-up questions, I'd be glad to like really clarify it further.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrea, for your question, and Suze. And it kind of circles back to when you said earlier about how our passion can intersect with a greater need in the world, and really connecting both. I feel really sparks a light, in seeing how that passion could turn into something else and being of service to humanity. Again, if anyone else has questions, feel free to unmute, or you can press *6 on your cell phone if you're on the phone. If we don't have any other questions from the audience, just take some time, guys. Feel free to jump in at any time. I'm going to move forward to some pre-submitted questions that we got before the webinar. So January Cresta Gabriel, she submitted a question, Noelle, and she wanted to know what are effective methods or techniques to use in order to receive messages or signs about what one's soul purpose is, and how to better align that with everyday living with that purpose.
Yeah. That's such a great question, and that's very practical as well. So, an effective method to really connect to yourself in order to receive messages and to receive signs would be to cultivate a practice of being closer or to hear your soul more on a daily basis. So it's a cultivating a practice of connecting to yourself so that this awareness really starts to build, and then in doing so you'd be more aware whether you're on track or off track by listening it and feeling it in your body and in your heart. So definitely find a technique that speaks to you. It could be something like sitting in meditation or communing in prayer, or cultivating a conscious movement practice like yoga, tai chi, or dance, or immersing yourself in an activity that brings you joy, like cooking can also be a very spiritual practice. And when you start to imbue love into your activities and into your daily life, then that actually starts to make your life one of purpose already. So putting love into each action already brings purpose into that moment because you're imbuing it with a sense of mindfulness as well. And in doing so, that makes everyday life a prayer. And I think also on a side note, like when we're cultivating this grounded conscious energy, that's a very like a masculine energy. Whereas when we're tuning in, when we're listening to our heart, getting in touch with our emotions, that's a very feminine quality energy. And balancing both is also a good way to really cultivate an attitude of mindfulness and presence and aligning the purpose with the present moment.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Noelle. Um, I hope that answers her. I felt that answered the question. But if January, if you have any further questions, we will have a link in the chat. So if you have further questions for Noelle, you'll be able to submit it there to follow up if you have additional questions. And so if I'm just going to circle back with the audience. Anyone else feel like they have any questions for Noelle before I move on? Any other questions?
We have a question from Monette. Were you always tuned into your soul purpose from the beginning, including when you started to work for a living?
Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely my first job, I did it because it was paying well. And at that point, I was just like, well, I wasn't really sure what to do. And there was this opportunity, and I took it primarily because of the pay. And I did find that I was in there for maybe like a year or so. And I did find that, while the money wasn't really enough, no matter what it wasn't sustaining. It did bring me joy, and I was very disconnected, and I'd kind of look for the next holiday and things like that. So and ultimately that made me a little sick. That's actually what spurred me to go on a journey of becoming a health coach. So after that, I spent a year like just immersed in health. So from that point of view, that was a big like jump in terms of contrast, but it is what also spurred that. So I do recognize that part of it along my journey. um so was I always tuned in? No, at the beginning, I wasn't. But that contrast in experience is what pushed me to really tune in. So all of the contrasting experiences or challenges also serve as a point of like a spring, so to help you tune in further and to know what you really want.
Awesome. I hope that answered your question, Manette. Do you have any other follow-up questions to that?
No, thank you very much, Noelle.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
We have a question from Andrea. Is there a difference between soul purpose and life purpose? Are they the same? It's a follow-up question to her first question.
That's a great question. A lot of the times I think we hear the word life purpose more, and that's great. I mean, it does provide direction, and I would just say that I think it would come from a difference on whether you're coming from the level of the mind and coming from the level of the soul. I mean, obviously they're both good things, can interchange them, but you can always come from the level of the mind and say, okay, well, I think this is good for me. I think this would be viable. I think this would um, earn a living, and this will is accepted by my family, society. Or you can actually also tune in and say, okay, what is it that I want, and what is it that I see I could really make a difference in the world, and what do I love, what do I enjoy, and where can I start to invest my energy in honing. So I guess what the difference would be where it's coming from, when you're starting to live and listen to the soul versus trying to put together what is most viable in the mind, right? So although I think both are good and definitely used interchangeably as such.
Awesome. Andrea, did that answer your question, or did you have any other questions for Noelle? She said yes, thank you. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. All right. If we don't have any other further questions, I have another pre-submitted question that I'll run by you, Noelle. And this is from Ulysses Neil Patrick. He wants to know, how can I balance my soul purpose? He has an example like music or something related to it without having to let go of my more grounded and down-to-earth pursuits. So basically he's trying to connect his soul's pursuits with his earthly human pursuits, and he wants to be able to reconcile both without rejecting his human needs and pursuits. So how would you answer our heroes and heroines in the audience?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. First of all, congratulations on really identifying what your soul purpose is. So you said it was music, and definitely music has this capacity to really, connect us to higher vibrations. It's timeless. It's borderless. And how can you connect something like music with your more grounded and down to earth pursuits? So that probably also depends on what you're doing, and it just remember that it all does really serve a purpose. So if you're maybe in a business, or if you're in an organization, maybe look at what are the things in my current experience that I can later on use to really mold and put together with my passion. So for example, if you're in an organization, then maybe you'd want to look at the structure, or maybe cultivating what their service is like. Or maybe if you're in a profession of like teaching, and you love the teaching quality of things, maybe that could be something melded into music as well, teaching music, right? So it can go so many ways, and it's up to you to really pick and choose. So remember, when you start to focus on something, that's where your energy really goes. And when you focus on a particular aspect, and that's something that brings you joy and excites you, do follow that inclination and look at how it can connect with something in your passion, and how you can mix it to how you can use it to concretize your passion even further. So yeah, so basically bring your passion from an art to something that is viable, maybe whether in the business world, in the teaching world, or as such.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Noelle. That was very insightful. I like how you connected the dots there, and how you spoke about music. I thought that was very enlightening to see how you can connect that to soul purpose and really bring that forth. Any other questions from the audience? Nothing else? Going once, going twice. All right, okay, no worries. I have another question, and so I'd like to speak to, we've had some people that may not be in line with their soul purpose as of yet, and you may have some people that are currently expressing their soul purpose through a business, or through their own pursuits, and they may want to know, how do they maintain that vibration of abundance? Because sometimes in the new age, sometimes we feel that we're not able to connect our material needs of prosperity, of abundance to sustain ourselves, while also doing something that we love and enjoy and make marrying those two. So how do you, what tips or recommendations do you have for someone to marry that consciously in their mindset and also practically by expressing themselves to their brand?
So yeah, definitely, abundance is always around us, and it's really up to us to focus on it. So wherever your focus is, that's where the energy starts to flow. So you could be looking at a big pile of debt like I was, or you could look at, a lot where abundance is flowing in. It doesn't have to be monetary even. It could be, maybe if it's a gift or people coming in to help, or, you know, food on the table. There's always something to focus on that will start with you the frequency of abundance. So you could even look at the trees and how they look so happy, and they surround you with green, or how fresh the air is, or anything that actually can bring that sense of joy and abundance is a good place to start. And so it depends where your focus is, and do ride that wave of joy. So focus on wherever you focus on, that's what will start to expand.
Awesome. Okay, wonderful.
So we have a question from the audience, from Andrea. She's asking, I believe she's asking, all our experiences in the past and what we do, is it helping us, or are they helping us in shaping our soul purpose?
Sure.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. So all of your experiences in the past are actually shaping you. And that's what you bring to the table when you yourself are actually shaping your soul purpose, your purpose here on earth. And and definitely it is helping you because they are shaping you. And when we are center, all of that come together at this particular point, and in that moment we start to shape the future and shape the next reality, and therefore the next. Yeah, can I clarify that further?
Yeah, I'd say go for it. I believe we have the timing. We have probably like a minute or so.
Yes, you can go ahead, Noel. If you can get closer to the microphone so we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, that's the highest setting.
If we're not able to cover everyone's questions now, please don't worry. We'll have an extra 30 minutes after the show. Noelle has graciously given us some extra time. So if you're unable to get all your answers now, we can cover that after.
I do have a question. If you're still adjusting your mic, I do have another question from the audience when you're ready, Noel.
Sure. I'm right here.
So this is a question from Kim. What are the realistic struggles around fulfilling one's soul purpose? It's not always a bed of joy and roses, right?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are challenges that can arise, and I've had my fair share of them, and they were quite hard. But what I realized was that it doesn't what I experience has a lot to do with how I choose to view it, and I can also choose to view it in a way from that higher perspective, and then not be so embroiled in the story of the challenge or the drama of the challenge itself. So then it becomes just another thing to learn from and to go through. And basically what I'm saying is not to really label it in your mind as like an obstacle or a challenge, because it's in that labeling that it becomes such. And while it's definitely not like a bed of joy, a bed of roses, I think we can also cultivate that state within us. And in doing so, when we're able to cultivate it to that degree, that actually doesn't really leave, no matter what it might look like on the outside. So we basically carry that state of joy, of bliss within us in no matter what we're facing. And yeah, looking at it from a higher perspective, so then we see where it's fitting in the big picture, and therefore not labeling it as a challenge, not labeling it as an obstacle. So then it just becomes an experience that's helping shape us, an experience that is actually leading us closer to our highest fulfillment, and an experience that later on becomes part of your story. So there, yeah.
Absolutely. I see how you approach it from that mindset. I guess it's that mindset level. I could see where some of us who've had experienced, fears, doubts, our psychology, our own background, or whatever those obstacles are. I could see how you're saying, maintain that state of mindset and consciousness and then you can handle it differently is what I'm getting from what you're saying.
Thanks, Sonia. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and for all that you've shared so far, Noelle. It's truly been enlightening. I got a lot of ahas, and I hope the audience did too. Do you have any, I want to say thank you to the audience, to everyone for your questions. Do you have any final comments that you'd like to offer to the audience, Noelle?
Well, I had a great time today. I'd love to answer any more of your questions if you have any. So I'm free and available. You can book a call with me, so that's a free call. And also we'll be having a group on Facebook, and we can continue the discussion there. So we'll be giving you the details in a bit. So actually it's right. And yeah, do join us in the upcoming webinar. So here's the details. So this is the website, Life and Soul Brands. So here also you can download a free guide. And this one actually will be about what we discussed today and in the webinars coming up. And also you can book a free discovery call with me. And the group that we're at is Life and Soul Brands. It's all about branding your soul purpose.
That's exciting. Yay, thank you so much, Noelle. I'd like to say again, thanks for all that you've shared, and you've highlighted so many wonderful things that I just remember the main points of the foundational pillars that you mentioned earlier about, following your bliss and, allowing that joy to flow in, right? And what were the other points that you mentioned? Follow your bliss, know your why.
Know your why, clarify your values, and always come from an attitude of service, and merge with the greater within you, and to trust in the timing of your life.
Awesome. I would just like to say again, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Everyone, if you've had just a fraction of what Noelle has shared with us today, she is definitely worth giving a call. She has so much to share in branding your soul purpose and making your soul purpose conscious. Feel free to join us on Life and Soul Brands on Facebook, and reach out. She offers consultations on finding your soul purpose and branding it, and I think that's a super cool and epic package. And I like her branding as it is, and I think it's really innovative and cool. Awesome. Thank you
so much, Tony-Ann.
Yeah. You're welcome.
So do download the free guide. So basically we'll be outlining some of the 5 steps that some of the steps that we spoke about. And these are actually the 5 steps on what we should take to stand out, to really begin to craft our message, to communicate to our audience. So for the rest of that, we'll be discussing it in the other webinars. And next week, we'll be talking about really how to merge your soul purpose with business and work. And in this one, we'll be really diving in depth on talking about how to use your life experiences, your passions, and skill sets to be of service through a viable business. So we're going to have 2 more webinars coming up next in the weeks to follow. And yeah, I'm really, really excited for that. I hope to see you there still. So we in this Evergreen Blossom Movement really invite you to join our intergenerational conversations here on Facebook, where we join the soul-driven present and future, as well as the broad and detailed aspects of it. So please do join our group, Evergreen Blossom, on Facebook.
The Evergreen Blossom Movement and Life and Soul brand share a common vision and purpose, and that is to see the generations, millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, centennials, and the silent generation engage in conversations with each other. Conversations about a soul purpose-driven present and what we can do therefrom to co-create a soul purpose-driven future, rather than a future of material human success that defames our soul. Such conversations can change the collective narrative, change our future, and change history's narrative of us to a narrative of peace beyond conflict, collaboration and fellowship beyond borders, love beyond islands of discontent, clarity of meaning beyond language, responsible custodianship over the happiness of our planet, and gratitude to our fellow human beings who made this sublime future happen. Thanks all for joining us, and thanks Noel for your contribution. See you next time.